Yeah, I'm very far from right. I've got.
I think we're nearly ready to start again. I think we're just waiting for Jenny Brown. That's the only person. You've misplaced her, haven't you, Colin?
Let me know your secret.
Oh,
She didn't hear that.
no,
She didn't
no.
hear that. Look,
I
she
didn't
smiles.
turn the mic round enough. Oh, here she is. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. It's been a longer morning than we anticipated. So we're ready, I think, to move on to application agenda item 11, planning application 240632 FUL Chimneys, South Down Road, Beer. Wendy Ormsby, Development Manager, is presenting the report on this one.
Good afternoon. So this is an application for the demolition and replacement dwelling and garage at Sea Chimneys in South Down Road. And you can see here the Google image showing the application site, which is this building in here. So you can see where it's located towards the edge of Beer, but it's within the built-up area of Beer, but also within the national landscape, which washes over the whole settlement of Beer. This is the site location plan. So this is showing the footprint of the existing bungalow, which sits on the site. And the proposal is to demolish the bungalow and to replace it with a dwelling of 3 stories. Worth mentioning here, possibly shown a little bit clearer in this, in fact, I'll just go back, is in terms of the neighbouring properties, because one of the key concerns and one of the reasons that this application is before committee is because the ward member has raised concerns and also objections have been raised in regards to neighbour impact being the principal issue. So it's just worth looking at the relationship with neighbours. So we've got Beera Watch here, which together with Stafford House were a redevelopment, so 2 dwellings built on the site, I believe, of a single dwelling previously, but a redevelopment that took place, I think, about 10 years ago. Beera Watch was built quite close to its boundary with Sea Chimneys, the development here. You've got up along here to the east and south down to the south here. So you can see this help shows the contours of the site, so you can see how the land drops away towards the coast, dropping down to the east. And whilst the proposed replacement dwelling is 3 stories, it's actually going to be cut into the slope. So from the road, it would effectively appear as a 2-story building. So this is showing the existing elevations of Sea Chimneys. This is the east and west elevations. As you can see, it's a relatively modest dwelling, but on the eastern side, it is built up with a terrace around it, obviously reflecting the fact that it's on a sloping site, so it's been built up onto a level platform. And these are the side elevations of the existing bungalow. And here you can see photographs of the existing building that it is proposed to demolish. So this is the front elevation, and this is at the side and the rear with the existing terrace along the back there. And this now shows the proposed footprint of the replacement dwelling. So it looks a little confusing with the various lines you can see here. So the grey area here is the outline of the new proposed dwelling. And the new proposed dwelling has the 3-storey element here with the sort of 3rd floor sort of almost as a basement. Then there's a glazed link, and then you have a 2-storey element closer to the boundary. And this here is a garage. And the green lines just indicate the fact that since it was originally submitted, the application has been revised slightly to pull the building a little bit further away from the boundary with Beera Watch, and also reducing the overall ridge height of this element of the development. It also shows trees to be removed within the site, and then indicates the fact that all of the trees along the main street frontage will be retained, and ones along the side boundaries also retained. There's a public right-of-way running along the eastern boundary here. And again, you can see Beera Watch, which is 2.6 metres away from the common boundary. South Down, which is 7.7 metres from the boundary. And Up Along, which at its nearest point is 7 metres from the boundary. And here are the east and west elevations of the proposed dwelling. So that effectively is the rear elevation, where you've got the additional floor set into the slope, and that's timber clad. The materials for the remainder of the building are natural stone and slate, which is in keeping with the materials typical within the settlement of Beer itself. And here you can see the garage element of the proposal. And these are the side elevations. So this is the elevation onto Beera Watch. So this is the garage, and this is the 2-storey element of the building, and this is the southern elevation. As you can see, incorporating a stone chimney feature within the site and stone on the elevations. So this just shows the outline of what was previously there. So the red line denotes the existing dwelling. So you can see that there's only a marginal increase in height compared to the existing. And the green denotes the revisions prior to the amendments. So as you say, the ridgeline has come down slightly, and it's moved slightly away from the boundary. During the life of this application, there was a sunlight study requested and submitted, and the purpose of the sunlight study was to look at whether or not the development would result in a loss of sunlight to the neighbour, Beera Watch, located to the north. And that sunlight study was based on the original scheme. There were a few problems along the way in terms of there were a few errors in it initially. However, we had a final study which officers are satisfied with that showed that there would be no significant loss of sunlight to Beera Watch. And that was on the scheme before it was revised to minimise the impact slightly on Beera Watch. And again, these are the comparison drawings. So you can see this was the previous height of the bungalow, and this is the new height here. So there is quite a notable increase in scale and massing of the building, and that's something that officers have had to take into consideration, bearing in mind the location within the national landscape. And here are the 3 floor plans of the proposed dwelling with the roof plans. And these are some sections through. Apologies, the scale is quite small, makes them a little bit hard to see. But that's just showing how the building, that's showing the existing slope of the land and just showing how it's going to be cut into the roof, the landform. And that's sections north-south through the dwelling. This is just a sort of a comparative block plan in terms of looking at relative heights and massing of neighbouring properties. Bira Watch here up along, located down the hill and south down. And the way that it's been designed with this second story element attached to the glazed link is to break up the scale and massing of the building so that it looks in keeping with its neighbours in terms of scale. This is a view from Southdown Road, and you can just see through, this is Bira Watch, so this is the neighbouring property, and the height of the roof of the new dwelling will be level with the lower part of the roof of Bira Watch. So you will see it, so you can just see there the roof of the existing bungalow. So that will, because it's now going to be effectively from the road, appear as a two-storey dwelling, it's going to be this height. So there, it will be visible within the streetscape in the same way that Bira Watch, which is a relatively recent redevelopment, is also visible. This is a view from the road, just showing the existing vegetation, which is to be retained. This again shows this is a tree constraints plan showing in green the trees and hedgerows that will be retained as part of the development. And this is view. So this is a view taken from standing on the existing terrace at Sea Chimneys, looking towards Southdown. So as you can see, there is already the potential for some a small degree of overlooking of the garden of Southdown. And the proposed terrace on the new dwelling will be only very slightly higher than the existing terrace. So in terms of overlooking of Southdown, it's not considered that there'll be any significantly greater impacts. This is the boundary with Bira Watch, and as you can see, they do have a large window, which I believe is into a sort of kitchen, dining, open plan area. There's also an additional, there's a sort of a conservatory element on the back here, which also has a large window providing light back into the same room. And so this is the windows. I think there's another window in here, I believe, to a room that I think might be currently in use as a study, and a smaller side window here. So this was one of the issues that officers.
It's not showing up for members. You can see where you're pointing to, but it's not
Oh,
for them.
thank you. Sorry, I hope the previous umpteen slides made some sense.
I've only just noticed myself. I've been watching your screen, so I've only just noticed myself, sorry.
Okay, so here is the larger window. This is the conservatory element that I was saying at this end has further windows allowing light in, and windows at the side. So this is something that officers did give some detailed consideration to, because the new dwelling will be coming about, so where you've got this paved area, the building will be coming closer to the boundary at about that point. And obviously it will be higher because it'll be coming up with higher eaves sloping away because this is a two-storey element. So there was some consideration given, and this is where the sunlight study was done to assess whether or not there would be an unreasonable loss of light to these windows. And the outcome of that study was that it was not. And it was also, I think, worth bearing in mind that this was a relatively recent development, and, putting a large window adjacent to a common boundary is effectively a sort of an expectation of maybe trying to achieve some amenity from light and sunlight from a neighbouring plot. Anyway, the outcome is that the officer view is that there will not be an undue loss of light or overbearing impact on this neighbouring property. This shows again further the boundary with Bira Watch. And this is a view east down south down road towards Bira Watch, to get an idea of what you might see in the streetscape. This is the area in here where the new dwelling would become visible. And then this is from within, so this is taken from the road junction adjacent to the car park adjoining Beach Court. So this is looking up, and you can see that red gable there is Sea Chimneys, and you can just see there Bira Watch. So Sea Chimneys is actually, because of its white barge boards and fascias, etc., you actually do see it. In some respects, despite being a smaller building, it's a little bit more prominent than Bira Watch, because Bira Watch is built of stone, so it's more recessive with its colour. So there will be a bigger building here, but it will also be built of stone, and I think it would be similarly recessive in the same way that Bira Watch is at the moment. And this is a further view across. This is from the edge of the Jubilee Memorial Ground, looking across again. The red there is the gable of Sea Chimneys. This is Bira Watch and the neighbouring property. So these are the two properties built about 10 years or so ago. And the proposal is to redevelop Sea Chimneys to be a larger two-storey building, also built of stone. It won't protrude above the ridge line, and this is set, I mean, obviously this is winter, there's not so many leaves on the trees, but it is set with that vegetative backdrop to, again, stop it standing out as a ridgeline development. So, as I said, the key issues for this coming to committee, the principle of development here is acceptable. It's within the built-up area boundary. It's a replacement dwelling. So what we're looking at is the specific impacts of the development. There's no technical objections to the development in terms of drainage, highways, ecology, landscape impact. The key issue has been impact on neighbours, and officers are satisfied that the neighbour impact is acceptable. This is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we just have one speaker on this one, and that is the applicant, Mr. Leighton Chumley. And thank you very much for your patience. We thought we'd hear you before lunch, but it's been a long morning. If you could just turn the mic up.
Can you hear me now? Excellent. Thank you, Chair.
3
and
minutes.
thank you, members, for investing your time in considering our application and giving us the opportunity to say a few words. The application is for a new family home, which Liz and I look forward to living in. We treasure this part of the world, and it's always been a large part of my life. My grandparents secured a caravan at the sea shanty in 1953, and I've spent every summer down in Bira and Branscombe since. It's been a long journey for me to get to a point where I can invest in property in Bira and live there for the rest of my life. Getting the right space is therefore very important to us, and in 2022 we appointed a highly respected, nationally acclaimed architect to come up with a design that respected the site and enhanced the village. Nature conservation and restoration is of utmost importance to us, and we've proactively sought out ecologists and wildlife experts to assess the current habitat and offer suggestions to enhance biodiversity. We have sought not to remove any mature landscaping as part of the design, And we are also seeking to achieve a highly sustainable and low carbon impact solution. A pre-app was submitted in April 2023, and our architects worked closely with officers to make amendments to achieve a solution that we felt was in line with all local, national and regional guidance and policy. Further ecological impact assessments and design information was collated, and a plan application was made in April 2024. The existing sea chimneys is at the end of its design life and has extensive asbestos and looks out of place, as the officer has said, in its setting. It is actually a relatively large plot compared to surrounding properties. The architects have skillfully used the site to produce a family house that does not impact on existing mature landscaping nor neighbours' views. The existing house is a chalet bungalow. There are 2 bedrooms on the first floor. Our proposal is to respect the ground floor level and create a lower ground floor. Much of the extra floor space of the proposal is within the low ground floor, i.e. the terraced area that you saw within the photographs. And that houses bedrooms, mechanical plant and external storage. The lower ground floor cannot be seen from the beach, the town, as you've seen from the photographs, the footpath at the bottom of the garden. During the planning process, we did receive objections from a neighbour and the ward councillor, Mr. Heath, due to the perceived impact on them. As the officer has said, we took their comments on board and revised the design to reduce the width of the proposal and reduce the height of one of the chimneys. Officers also requested further mitigation to protect any risk of overlooking. Revisions have been made, and to our knowledge, our neighbour has not made any further representations. And I've also spoken to Councillor Heath to advise him of the amendments. Our proposal is in accordance with policy. We have no statutory objections, and in our view, the design does enhance the appearance of South Down Road. We have protected and will enhance biodiversity and look forward to contributing to the community, both economically and socially. We hope you'll support our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, could you just turn the mic off? Thank you. Okay, so members, questions? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you. I just wonder if I could ask the officers, is there any way that we can make this so that it's not a second home, not a holiday home, it's going to be a primary residence? Can we put that as a condition or not?
No, we don't have any policies to support that. Where primary residency conditions are applied, it tends to be in areas that have got a neighbourhood plan that have specifically introduced such a policy, such as in St Ives, but we don't have those policies anywhere in East Devon at the moment.
I think we need an application for change of use if it were to be changed to a holiday accommodation, would it?
No, it wouldn't. A holiday, in most cases, a holiday use is deemed to be a C3 dwelling use. It's only in rarer occasions where, for example, you have a large house that's regularly let out for things like stag parties and hen do's, you can deem that the extent of the use has materially changed the character. But ordinarily, no, you don't need planning permission to use a house as an Airbnb, for example.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. I see there's 2 chimneys, but do they actually do anything? I noticed one's got windows in it. And could I get some indication? There is a change in ridge height between the bungalow and the new house. Can we get some indication of how much higher the ridge height of the house is?
Just looking at the floor plans. It looks to me that there is a chimney on the end here. So this is the first floor, and I still see what looks like it could be.
Shall we ask the applicant?
And so from an architectural perspective, the architects were keen to incorporate chimneys to reflect the name and keep that historical element. So we're not proposing to use the chimneys, no.
I mean, basically, you can call it anything you like. It doesn't have to have that name, so you don't have to have the chimneys sticking out the top, do you? But there you go.
I find houses without chimneys always look strange to me. I saw a development once and I thought, why do they all look so weird? And I suddenly realised no chimneys, which you're right, many houses don't need anymore. I think sometimes they're used for a gas flue, aren't they? I think so. I certainly was in my house. Okay, any further questions? Oh, yeah, ridge height, yeah.
To me, looking at what we could see of the bungalow from the seafront, the top of the bungalow was at the landscape level. So the new ridge is going to be higher than that, isn't it?
If your concern is this sitting above the ridge line, so this section here shows the dwelling here, so the land continues, so this is the line of trees up behind it, so this is the ridge here. I can't see an immediate, in the officer report, description of actually how high it is, but I do know quite specifically that it is, it's the same height as this part of Bira Watch. So that's been confirmed.
Okay, any further questions? No? Okay, in that case we can go into debate. Somebody like to? Councillor Anhall.
Thank you, Chair. Say it's putting a building where there has been a building and upgrading it. I do note that there's a landscape planting plan, which is conditioned, but I can't access it. But can we have an approach where not everything is native, because this is built up area, and even non-native plants actually add to biodiversity? So if we could have a more decorative and more meaningful landscaping planting scheme, I think it would benefit from that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mike Howe?
I'm going to recommend approval as per officer's recommendation. I can see no issues.
Okay. Councillor Barlow seconding. Any other members wish to comment? Councillor Faithful.
Well, maybe this is a bit of a minor trivial thing, but to me, the positioning of the air source heat pump is almost nearer to the next door neighbour than it is to the main part of the house, because they've tacked it on the end of the garage. Seems to be as far away from the house as possible, which I don't know how much noise they do make, but I think there's probably going to make more impact to noise level to the next door neighbour than it is to the house that's being built.
Have environmental health commented on that?
Yes, the environmental health officer did raise some concerns initially, but he's removed his objection now to the air source heat pump, because you're right, it can cause noise issues, and so that was addressed.
Oh yeah, it's on page 123 actually. but yeah, the environmental health officer withdrew his concern. So, okay, any other thoughts? Councillor Haggerty.
Yeah, the new design fits in much better with the existing in that particular street. Totally, it's a complete, no objection at all to this.
Okay, thank you. Well, fairly painless. So let's go to a vote. So those in favour of approval? Okay, almost unanimous. Those against? Abstain? Councillor Faithful abstaining. Okay. Sorry, you had a very long morning. You never know with this committee. We could have gone all round the houses, we usually do, but I think we've spent most of our energy on this morning. Okay, thank you very much for attending, and you're on to the next bit now, which is actually getting on with it. Okay, that brings us on to the applications that were going to be considered this afternoon. So agenda item 12, this is planning application 232166 MOUT. This is land, oh, sorry, no, I've done that. No, I haven't. So I'm getting them all mixed up now. Land south of Gilbrook House, Woodbury. This is pages 134 to 210 on your agenda. Looks like Liam is presenting this one.
So good afternoon, members. This application is before committee today because it represents a departure from the adopted local plan, and a contrary view has been expressed by the ward member and the parish council. The application seeks outline planning permission with all matters reserved except access for the construction of up to 60 residential dwellings. The proposal would include affordable housing at 50%, which is 35% off-site and 15% off-site contribution, public open space, play space, and attenuation feature. The application site is located to the southwest of the village of Woodbury within East Devon and is approximately 1.3 kilometres from the East Devon National Landscape. The site comprises of a 3.02 hectare parcel of agricultural land which is bounded by Gilbrook Road to the west, Gilbrook River to the east, agricultural fields to the south, and the village of Woodbury to the north and northeast. The site is adjacent to Gilbrook Close here, which is home to 8 dwellings. This map sets out the site constraints. So the site is adjacent to the Woodbury Conservation Area, which is the orange dotted line up here, and is adjoining Gilbrook House and adjoining barn, which is grade 2 listed and is around 20 metres from higher Venmore Farmhouse in the southwest here, which is also grade 2 listed. The entire site constitutes grade 3 agricultural land. There are 7 TPO protected trees and 1 TPO protected group within or adjacent to the site, which are all to be retained. 2 areas of the site are located within the flood zone, although no built development is proposed within the flood zone. The site is located outside of the built-up area boundary and therefore is located in open countryside. The site is not allocated for development under the adopted local plan, but Strategic Planning Committee resolved to allocate this site for 60 dwellings as part of the emerging local plan. So the application was supported with a framework plan which sets out the landscape visual impact assessment recommendation, location of blocks, drainage features and play space. And the application was also supported by an illustrative master plan However, officers have been clear that we would not support this layout, but it does give an indication that 60 dwellings could be accommodated with open and play space. And this master plan shows a connection to public right of way 3, which is located to the other side of the river on Broadway, with a connection that has been agreed as part of the application. In terms of access, which is proposed to be determined as part of this application, the proposed vehicular access would be via Gilbrook Road and would include an uncontrolled crossing to the south to provide a pedestrian connection to the existing pavement to existing dwellings at Venmore. Swept paths and visibility displays have been provided, and the applicant has agreed to fund a traffic regulation order to relocate the 30-mile-an-hour signage on Gilbrook, subject to assessment by county. In a new pedestrian access would be via existing adopted highway at Gilbrook Close, and includes a 2-metre wide pathway alongside Gilbrook House and adjoining barns. At present, Gilbrook Close is a shared surface that leads onto Gilbrook. The proposal also includes off-site highway works at Gilbrook Bridge. The existing bridge does not include a separate or dedicated footway. It includes a painted white line in which vehicles can drive over and is deemed not particularly safe. The off-site works would include between a 1.2 and 2 metre wide pedestrian footway, thereby connecting the site and the west of the village to the east of the village over the river. The Highway Authority have recommended approval of the application and stated that the informal priority flow situation over Gilbrook Bridge would be further strengthened with the footway proposal, and the pedestrian and bridge works would provide a safety betterment. The application has been supported by swept paths and analysis for a single-storey bus and a tractor and trailer unit. The bus is measured at 2.55 metres wide, and the Highway Authority have reviewed and raised no concerns. In relation to the swept path for a tractor trailer unit, this is 11 metres long and 2.4 metres wide, and again, no concerns have been raised by the Highway Authority. In relation to flood risk and drainage, the proposal would include a basin here within the site, as well as swales and attenuation crates. The proposal has been reviewed by the Environment Agency, Devon County Council, Flood Risk and South West Water, with no objections raised, subject to a number of conditions, including a condition restricting the occupation of the development to ensure that improvement works have been completed at the Woodbury wastewater treatment works, as well as improvements to potable water supply. In terms of site photos, so this is located on Gilbrook View North East, showing the location of the vehicular entrance, which would be roughly here. And this is currently national speed limit, with the visibility displays having been verified by Highway Authority, with a pedestrian connection to this existing pavement here and across. This is the existing footpath and bridge at Gilbrook. The existing footpath, which is located here, stops here, and then pedestrians are required to walk out onto the highway, which is shown here. And this shows the existing footway into the village, showing the existing white painted line. There's approximately 46 metres of highway without any dedicated footway. And obviously in places this is quite narrow, so concerns have been raised in relation to sort of wheelchair users and buggies. This is the existing bridge showing the footway and the entrance. This is a sort of pedestrian gate and entrance into Gilbrook House, which is Grade 2 listed. This is the existing footway at Beaches Close, so on the other side of the river, and showing that the existing footway stops, and again pedestrians are required to walk in the road alongside the bollards to access the other side of the bridge. This is looking at Gilbrook Close and where the new entrance to the site would be for pedestrians. As said before, this is a shared surface, but it's adopted by the Highway Authority. And then this is just showing sort of the location of the footway between the adjoining barns at Gilbrook and existing dwellings at Gilbrook Close. And then this is where the site, the vehicular footway entrance, the footway entrance to the site is adjacent to the barns. In terms of the site itself, it's obviously an agricultural field. This is looking to the south east towards Broadway, and this is the protected group of trees which are to be retained. This is looking towards Meadowview Close. Again, the trees are to be retained, and the Gilbrook River is located sort of just down, can't quite see it, but along that sort of line of vegetation. This is the view towards Beeches Close, and again, the vegetation is to be retained, and the river or stream is located in between. This is the view towards the southern boundary, showing sort of existing trees and hedgerows. And again, towards the southern boundary, and the site is relatively contained due to the topography of land on the southern side, as such that there's been no sort of concerns in relation to landscape visual impact. And this is the view towards the existing dwellings at Gilbrook Close, and a detailed layout as part of a reserve matters would ensure that sort of the impacts to those dwellings would be acceptable. Obviously, it's a requirement of planning law that the decisions are determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. The site, as noted before, is not allocated for development and is located in the countryside, meaning that the proposal would be contrary to strategy 1, 7 and 27 of the local plan and the villages plan. Whilst the site is outside of the built-up area boundary, it does adjoin the village of Woodbury and would be within walking and cycling distance to day-to-day services, bus links and community facilities. So the proposal would have some support from strategy 3 and the NPPF, which supports sustainable development. Let's try and move this down. You have to bring it around. Okay. Oh, there you go. I just want to move that down a bit. So a material consideration in this application is the need to bolster housing land supply, especially affordable housing, and the proposal would result in additional housing sort of adjacent to Woodbury, which should be given significant weight in the decision. The proposal includes 50% affordable housing, which is 35% off-site, and 15% via an off-site contribution, which meets the requirements of strategy 34. Due to the nature of the development, the proposal would result in less than substantial harm to the Woodbury Conservation Area, as well as limited harm to the setting of 2 listed buildings, which weighs negatively in the planning balance, but is considered to be outweighed by public benefit. The proposal has been assessed in relation to design, highways, trees, ecology, land contamination, sustainability and amenity, and officers have concluded that the proposal would not result in significant harm. The proposal would result in a biodiversity net gain, and the provision of public and place space exceeds the local plan requirement. There's been no objections from the Environment Agency, DCT Flood Risk or South West Water. The application would have associated benefits including housing delivery and affordable homes, the off-site highway works, public and open space which are given weight, and there's also economic benefits from construction to operation, benefits to local businesses and services, as well as SIL, of which a proportion would go to the parish council. But there clearly is a need to balance development within the countryside against need for housing within the district, and in order to justify a departure from the local plan, the material considerations must indicate otherwise and outweigh the harm. And therefore, in the view of officers and having regard to all planning issues and given the need to bolster housing land supply for the longer term, the site's sustainable location and access to local services and the level of affordable housing proposed, officers consider that the material considerations in this case would, on balance, justify departure from the local plan, and the proposed development would overall align with the principles of sustainable development. It's therefore recommended that the appropriate assessment is adopted and the application is approved subject to a Section 106 legal agreement and conditions as shown on the screen.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll hear from one of the objectors first. That's Cheryl McGawley.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cheryl McGawley, and I'm speaking as a resident of Woodbury, not as parish councillor. I do not support this outline application. My reasons are that I do not consider the site is best located due to accessibility, especially for pedestrians. So this is contrary to policy TC2. Safe access for pedestrians into the site is not currently being provided, and connectively to the village would be via Gilbert Bridge. Referring to the officer's report, it states that the bridge is 4.55 metres wide, with a line denoting a footpath across the bridge. This is incorrect, as the white line demarks the edge of the carriageway and the width overall. The bridge is well used due to Gilbert connecting Woodbury Village with the business park and the A376. It is often used by large tractors with a trailer in tow and LGVs visiting the business park. I do not believe a designated pathway would be safe or suitable for this location. I have severe concerns for the safety of pedestrians accessing the village, amenities, especially children, walking to the school. Therefore, application is contrary to policy TC7. I'm extremely surprised that the officers at Devon County Council are supportive of the access points, even with the vehicle access being along a stretch of road that has poor visibility. As this application is being considered on the existing plan and not the emerging local plan, this site is outside the village boundary in a flood zone. It's near a listed building and road safety issues. 2 weeks ago, at a planning meeting, the East Devon District Council officer recommended refusal using strategy 7, as the building shouldn't remain because it's in the open countryside? Or is it because East Devon District Council didn't want that one? Lucky the committee saw sense and approved it. I've read the report prepared for the committee and cannot see anything other than recommendation for approval. The report includes reasons that even if the committee rejects the application, that this would result in an appeal. Let's face it, East Devon District Council are not going to risk potential costs of an appeal if they already believe that they will lose. I would also like to highlight your officers' comments on Woodbury 46, which is a potential site for the new emerging plan. It was not recommended to be allocated due to the landscape, flooding and proximity to a listed building, and how poorly related to Woodbury. The site is across the road from Woodbury 10, so surely the reasons should also apply. There does not appear to be a consistency. East Devon District Council are contradicting themselves. So to summarise, members, you're elected by the people of East Devon. You are in Regulation 18 of the local emerging plan, so the site should be viewed under the current local plan. Remember, when your plan goes to Regulation 19, it may fail. In the past 12 months, East Devon District Council have given permission for 271 houses over 7 sites in the parish of Woodbury. Due to time constraints, you've dismissed a site that could have been put into a different tier, which will work for the parish of Woodbury and give you the 60 houses in a different location.
To come to a close now. So you've had 4 minutes.
Thank you.
Right. You could have made a final point, but okay. I think
Need 2 seconds. So please take the information into consideration, or at least defer your decision. Have a site visit. Also wait for the developer to submit plans for a pedestrian path and bridge to go across the existing bridge.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will just say we do have some officers from Devon County Council Highways here today to answer any questions. So members may want to be aware of that. We have another objection from Andy Douglas. You're reading it?
I am.
Oh, yeah, Amanda's delegated, has she?
I know my place.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so those opposing this application on safety grounds were told recently that highways are the experts and we are not qualified to question their support for this proposal. But are they always right? And might they have got it wrong for whatever reason in this case? Please have an open mind on this issue. This application proposes to narrow the carriageway across the bridge to a mere 3.35 metres to accommodate a new raised footway to enable pedestrian access to the village. Because the bridge forms part of an S-bend, local farmers do not believe their everyday tractors and trailers that regularly ply back and forth across the bridge will be able to do so without mounting the new pavement. And this would equally apply to large articulated lorries. Even highways have conceded that, and I quote, to say the mounting of the curb would never happen would be remiss of us. Instead, they suggest that such vehicles make a 6-mile detour to get to the other side of the bridge, which is impractical and not exactly good for the environment. So the question I would like to ask councillors to ask highways before deciding upon this application are these. Firstly, if, as they conceded, some vehicles might need to mount the pavement to cross the bridge, do they honestly think this is a safe proposal? They claim it is a betterment to the existing situation, but does that make it safe, especially as these 60 houses will massively increase the number of pedestrians needing to cross the bridge? Secondly, when conducting their swept path analysis, what was the maximum size vehicle they used? And did they factor the bend on the bridge? The tractor and trailer shown in the application was only 11 metres long and shorter than those which are in regular use, on a regular basis. Thirdly, it is claimed that 80 to 90% of vehicles types were tracked, but what about the 10 to 20% that were not? Did the tracking include large vehicles that we are concerned about? I expect not, as highways talked about occasional large vehicles needing to cross the bridge, which shows a complete lack of understanding of the volume and size of traffic along this narrow, busy road. To conclude, despite what highways say, common sense would dictate that any new arrangement that means that large but legal vehicles have to drive up and over the pavement to cross the bridge is inherently dangerous to pedestrians using this pavement. The back wheels of a modern-day tractor are over 2 metres high. Such vehicles should never be allowed to come close to pedestrians and children in particular. The local environment and landscape is already paying a huge price to accommodate all these new houses in East Devon. Please do not let pedestrian safety become another casualty of meeting these housing targets. And if the developers put forward any alternative pedestrian arrangements, please make sure that these are cast iron conditions in any determination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just point out that it's for people who are driving large vehicles to be responsible for the safety of pedestrians, not the pedestrians. And that is enshrined in the new highway code. So I think we just need to bear that in mind when we're talking about potential conflict between pedestrians and vehicles. Okay, so we'll hear from Woodbury Parish Council, Councillor Ken Perry. And you also have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Ken Perry. I'm a councillor for Woodbury Parish Council. We do not support this outline application as, amongst other things, we do not consider it provides safe access into the site for either vehicles or pedestrians, and that it is therefore in contravention of policy TC7, and we ask you to refuse this application. We note that Highways are supporting the application, but on this occasion, we consider they have got it badly wrong. We ask you to question them closely as to why they continue to support it. Joining me on a journey around 200 metres long, approaching Woodbury from the A376 at Pink House Corner. Initially, the road has no speed restriction, and having passed Woodbury Business Park, we approach Downs Corner, where we are confronted with a narrowing road and a sharp, blind left-hand bend. Having negotiated this immediately, we will be faced with a new, unmarked, unlit pedestrian crossing, followed closely by a private access to houses on the left and a road junction to the right into the proposed new housing development. All this within 50 metres. Passing the junction, we enter the village 30-mile speed limit, and the road bends to the right again with limited forward vision. Around the bend, there are junctions to Mill Lane and Gilbrook Close, and usually there are cars parked on the left. The road continues with a slight wiggle and reduced in width by the new footpath leading onto the bridge across Gilbrook. The weight-restricted road bridge will have a 1.2 metre wide footpath on the right and a pinch point vehicle lane, in reality less than 3 metres wide, on the left. Traffic flow here is single file, controlled by a voluntary unmarked give and take, give way system. Our journey is hazardous enough in daylight with light traffic. Now imagine the same journey on a dark winter evening in the rain with limited visibility, pedestrians, heavy traffic, and the limited street lighting. The road from Pink House Corner to Woodbury is a busy road, frequently used as a diversion route off the busy 376, Exeter to Exmouth Road, in the event of any closure of that road. We know that to walk the proposed pedestrian route from Gilbrook Close to the centre of Woodbury alone will be unsafe, and that to do so with a young family will be positively dangerous. Highways officers maintain that on paper the proposals work, but in reality we know that sooner or later there will be a serious accident. Provision of a further pedestrian link to Broadway is mentioned in the officer's report without any details being provided, and we urge you to question your officers closely on this point. Even if this link is delivered, it will not remove the issues of crossing the Gilbrook Bridge, as it will take you to a different part of the village, away from the main services. This outline application is not the right solution. Please do not approve it. If you cannot refuse it today, we implore you to defer your final decision pending a site visit so that you can see and appreciate our serious safety concerns, as well as the cumulative impact on this and other approved and proposed significant housing developments on Woodbury Village. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to the agent, Mr. John Lloyd.
Thank you for letting me speak today. So my name is Jonathan Lloyd. I'm a highways professional advising 3 West on the proposals for 60 homes at Gilbrook House in Woodbury. The proposals include access onto Gilbrook just north of Ivy Lane and pedestrian access through Gilbrook Close, as you've heard. I've worked on the scheme for the past 3 years and have collaborated with Devon County Council and East Devon District Council from the very early stages of the project, having met on site a number of times to agree the highway proposals. As part of this work, we've reached agreement with Devon County on proposed footway improvements from Gilbrook Close, along Gilbrook, over the Gilbrook Bridge connecting to footway north of Beeches Close, providing a continuous connection between the site and the village centre. These works include narrowing the carriageway and maintaining the current single-way working. Carriageway is still maintained at 3.5 metres, which is wider than the minimum 3 metres, which is required under highway standards. And any vehicles requiring access through a carriageway wider than that would need prior approval from the police. The proposals also include upgrading the bridge parapets, which are already in need of maintenance and improvement. In response to Woodbury Parish Council, we have offered some amendments to the design to allow for the passage of occasional wide loads, such as combine harvesters, by specifying a lower height, overrunnable curb. Vehicle access is located further to the southwest, around 50 metres from Iview Lane. This includes a simple priority junction with a pedestrian crossing to the footway on the western side of the road. The access design and visibility space fully accord with Manual for Streets guidance based on the observed speeds, which are around 20 miles an hour as you come around the bend. The pedestrian crossing in this location enables a continuous footway link from Venmore Orchard through the site, meaning that residents to the west of the site no longer need to walk in the road to access the village centre. Our design, which is approved by Devon County Council, has been through extensive design review, including a Stage 1 road safety audit, which is also approved by Devon's own road safety team. Notwithstanding this work and approvals, Woodbury Parish Council have remaining concerns with the narrowing of the carriageway on the Gilbert Bridge. While these concerns aren't shared by me or Devon County Council, my client is committed to investigating alternative proposals for the Parish Council's preferred solution. Any alternative arrangement can be considered in parallel to the Reserve Matters application, but while this may be considered preferable, it is not required to make the scheme acceptable from a highways safety perspective. Furthermore, a landowner agreement has been reached to deliver a second footway connection from the southern boundary of the site, connecting into the proposed housing development on the Clinton Devon Estates land to the east. This route will not only deliver excellent pedestrian linkages to the village centre for our residents, but also offer enhanced linkages for existing village residents, providing a safe walking route to jobs at Woodbury Business Park and enjoyment of the footpath networks to the west of the village. I would like to emphasise that this application is already supported by a well-considered access strategy, safety reviews, and Devon County Highways have no objection to the proposals. I would therefore encourage you to support the scheme, which offers many community and planning benefits, including much needed new open market and affordable homes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we now come to the ward members. Councillor Jeff Young.
Thank you, Chair. I did not support this application as I thought it should be determined on the current local plan. However, the emerging local plan now has included this site. If this application is agreed, I would hope many community benefits would be included, as it is acknowledged that if you are adding a great number of houses to a community, it is vital that improvements are added to cope with these additional residents. I asked for the provision of a multi-use trail path linking the east side to Broadway and onto the village centre and west towards the Woodbury Business Park, which will greatly improve the green travel connections. I see educational and health provisions have been covered with the Education Department requesting funding contributions, but no requirements submitted by the NHS. The Parish Council have provided a substantial shopping list of improvements they would like if this application were agreed. The PC have asked for the provision for the extension of existing cemetery. This was considered outside the scope of the 106 funding. The PC also asked for additional allotments. The developer said that they would be pleased to agree a S106 obligation and either the allotments be managed by the PC or the estate management company. They have also asked for additional pedestrian road crossing in Gilbrook, and again the developer has responded that this would need to be in line with the DCC highways. The PC also asked for a link bridge to footpath 3 by Meadowview and a pedestrian controlled crossing across Broadway. This is in line with my suggestion, and the developer has confirmed they are working proactively with 2 other site developers to facilitate this. The PC has asked for a contribution off-site of 150,000 towards the Hive community building. The developer has commented that according to their calculations that the Sill Parish Council payment will cover this. Finally, the PC have asked for contributions of 20 mph speed limit and various effective speed calming measures. The developer has confirmed a 106 agreement and, together with other developers' agreements, would cover these arrangements. I'm also in receipt of an email between the chair of the PC and the developers, dated 29th of September, delivering an improved pedestrian route to the village between Gilbrook Close and Beaches Close, with a possible new pedestrian bridge alongside the vehicle bridge. The email states that the landowners are amenable to allowing this, and subject to planning, would provide better pedestrian access than originally proposed. These requests have been listed in a report under the 106 applications and will be included in the conditions for a full planning application. All this is credit to the PC and the developer to facilitate many extra additions that will help offset the increase in dwellings to the village. One final observation is both this side and the Broadway side will require a small play area, which, if the bridge over the Gilbrook is agreed, will be in touching distance. Could I ask both developers and the planning team to negotiate a single larger play park rather than two silly small ones? So the developer has therefore obliged to many of the PC requests, and although this application is against our current policy, I do not have sufficient grounds to object. So I support this reluctantly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. And Councillor Ingham.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start with a reason why you shouldn't approve this application, then something of primary concern to me, and then all the reasons why you should. Okay, so line 1 of your executive summary says this application is a departure from the adopted local plan. You say, but we've got another one in the pipeline, haven't we? But let's just recognise at the moment this site is outside the built-up area boundary, but it is immediately adjacent to it. And then look at some of the reasons why perhaps you would consider approving it. Okay, so if it's immediately adjacent to the built-up area boundary, if you identified, if you approved this outline, could that line be moved? Well, it's already on the agenda for strategic planning on Friday of this week, okay? And they're recommending that that boundary includes this. And that's based on strategic planning, having identified this site in early September to be a site allocation, okay? So regardless of the current plan, the emerging local plan says this is a good site, okay, and it's been allocated and has to be ratified, through the council next year. So, also, you might have noticed that this is a grade 3 land, okay, so thank goodness for that, because we don't want to go building on grade 1 or 2, or even, if we can avoid it. Because it's, if you can remember the map you were looking at earlier, the plan of where this is relating to Woodbury, it's not that far from the actual village centre. The village centre is fairly south within the core of the settlement, and as long as people can access it, road, bus, whatever, pedestrians cycle there, then it is fairly near, by my definition, as adjacent to the core facilities within the settlement. So that's good. I think it is a tremendous shame that this council's allocated so many houses within the emerging local plan for Woodbury. But that's in the pipeline already. So we have to, I suggest you have to be as fair as you can we're bearing all these things in mind. So Jeff read out a wish list for you, and I'm not going to argue with any of that. I think it's important now with any major application like that, that there are fringe acceptable benefits, remunerations to the community for accepting development within the area. So I go along with that. But there is one thing, one concern that I ask you to think about is, it's funny, isn't it, when there isn't a problem at all. Everyone keeps talking about what isn't a problem at all, all right? So pedestrian access, okay? So I know none of you would want it on your conscience to make a poor quality decision on this one. I think pedestrian access is the only limiter on this application. I think, to be fair to the applicant and to treat them fairly. You might want to, you heard them say, defer. You just call planning inspection, and the planning inspection, I'd suggest to you, should be purely to consider that pedestrian access across that bridge and whether it's safe. Bear in mind what Jeff's told you, what the alternatives could be. Can we secure, you know, a pedestrian footbridge beside the current one? Then you're, forgive the pun, you're safe as houses, aren't you? But that's what, if it was down to me, I'd be saying I want to see the site and to be clear about that. Other than that, I really don't think it would be correct to reject this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, members, we'll move on to questions. Councillor Faithful.
First question, Gilmore House, is there any connection between Gilmore House and any of this development? Because what I see, the footbridge, the road bridge at the moment, there's a pavement comes along until you get to the front wall of Gilmore House, and then it comes to nothing until you get up. So I'm trying to see if there's a place apart from this where you can put a footbridge. Have they got a positioning for the footbridge? I think Councillor Jung was just talking about it. Because that's the main thing for me. I'll leave it for that. I can't remember what the other one was.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Matt Hall.
3 questions, and sorry, 2 are slightly pedantic, but I think it's important to have the clarification. Firstly, obviously with this site, everything bar access is a reserved matter. If access was a reserved matter, its definition under Article 2 of the Town and Country Planning Act includes circulation routes within the site. Can I just be clear, because I can't see any reference to circulation within the site, that should this application come back for a reserved matters application, that it would allow us to discuss access again? Question 2, forgive me if I missed it, but I couldn't see it in your presentation, and I couldn't see it within the submitted documents. We don't have an indicative view of what the proposed 60 houses would look like. My understanding is, according to our requirements on our website, that an outline application should, and I quote, include an indication of the upper and lower limits for height, width and length of each building within the site boundary. The third question I think is I think I know the answer, but I think this is a really important question for Woodbury, but others such as West Hill within the East Devon area. When we keep talking about highway safety, it always appears to me that we are discussing the site with the existing. But there's an awful lot of sites coming forward in these places, and I just want to know whether we are assessing the cumulative impact of what is happening Thank you.
Okay, string of questions for you there. We'll take one more from councillor Barlow and then we'll
Thank you, Chair.
come back to the
Well,
officers.
mine are quite simple compared to that. Does Woodbury have a made neighbourhood plan so that the SIL money it gets, they get 25% rather than just 15? And the second thing is, we talk about making a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and doing 106 to contribute to the 20-mile-an-hour. But in the 106 planning obligations you've written down, you do a 30-mile-an-hour one. Is that a slightly different one, or is that just a mistake on the 20 or 30, or is that because the Gilbrook is not exactly where you were talking about, reducing it to 20 miles an hour?
Shall we just deal with those?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to try and respond to those. So first question was in relation to Gilbrook House and the footbridge. So this is the view existing of the front wall of the Gilbrook House, which is a listed building and a conservation area. There have been discussions sort of outside this application about demolishing this wall and putting a footway that would continue on from this one. However, that's not been submitted as part of the application, and it would need sort of listed building consent. So the likelihood of that, of the harm to the conservation area and listed building outweighing the public benefits is to be decided. You know, we've not got an application in to assess that, so it's being assessed on the grounds on the application sort of before you today, which includes the dedicated footway within the road. Yeah, So, and then on the other side of the bridge as well. So this is potentially here for footway would be it would, you know, within this gap here, you'd obviously need the landowner's agreement on the other side of the bridge, as well to obviously land the bridge, and you know, questions in terms of maintenance and ownership, and you probably need agreement from the Environment Agency for a bridge over there as well. So that's not been hasn't come forward as part of this application. There have been discussions, but you know, they've been sort of ruled out as, especially because there's been no objection in relation to the proposed off-site works. So there'd be no need to explore that in loads of detail from sort of East Devon's perspective and the highway. In relation to the question relating to access within the site, there was submitted a indicative sort of master plan and framework plan. I go back, which shows which shows the you know, locations of roads, footpaths, and connections within the site. It is obviously illustrative, so there would be, you know, this wouldn't be set in stone, but there is opportunities for sort of walks within the site, and as well as proposal for an activity trail that runs along the public open space in here, as well as a connection agreed to the Broadway site to the east over here. In relation to the view of 60 houses, they would be two-story in height. There's obviously a framework plan to set out how this could be accommodated, and sort of indicative images of the proposed dwellings are included within the design and access statement. In terms of the cumulative impact of the development, I think we primarily look at the impact of this development on its own. I have in the report given some consideration as to level of development within Woodbury and impact on sort of education and services. However, a lot of the other applications in Woodbury have been approved. Well, all the other three have been approved, and the impacts of this development are considered to be sort of acceptable. In any cases, obligations, SIL payments, and Section 106 agreement would be there to mitigate any additional harm. Woodbury does not have an adopted neighbourhood plan, so the SIL would not be the 25%, it would just be 15%. They are, I believe, at Reg 14 stage, so they have set out, I think, some part of it. I can't remember what they've done, but they're in sort of an early stage of their neighbourhood plan. And in terms of the 20-30 mile an hour speed limit, it would be 30 mile an hour. There's an existing sign about here, which is where the national speed limit and 30, so you can come into the village, it goes to 30 miles an hour. That is, as part of a TRO, would potentially be moved sort of down to Venmore area, but it would need to go through that its own process to be approved by the county authority, county highways.
Okay, did you want to come back on something?
If I could just thank the officer for his responses. Can I just be clear that we will have responses from the highways officer about the circulation routes within the sites at reserved matter stage, and we can discuss those at reserved matter stage. It's not to be discussed now, is that correct? Both of you.
Question is, can we look at access again when it comes back at reserved matters?
Yeah, absolutely. We can look at the internal access routes as part of any reserve matters application.
Okay. Councillor Howe, you had a question?
A few questions, all directed at Devon County Council Highways. So welcome, thank you for coming. In the simplest terms possible, because I know you guys can get really technical with your books and everything else, please can you assure this committee, you've been to site, you've assessed this narrowing of this road, you believe that the footpath you're suggesting, and if you could describe the footpath, because I'm getting conflicting advice from a raised footpath to a lower raised footpath to goodness knows what, and the circumstances of vehicles going over the curb as well, and the safety of this aspect, particularly when we've all got photos of a combine harvester going down this road earlier this year that took up the full width of this bridge completely. And that sort of thing. You can imagine where I'm coming from and what I'd like to hear. Thank you.
Right, Liam, just for context, thank you. So using this for reference, I mean, at the moment, there's roughly about 45 metres of an absence of a footway from north of Gilbert Close to south of Beeches Close. The northern part, so north of the bridge going towards Beeches Close, that has been put forward as a proposed 2 metre footway. That's outlined in the drawing. I think the area of main discussion is the bit south of that, which is, again, roughly 20-25 metres going south. Like I said, at the moment, there's nothing there. And it's important to note that this is a residential development. It's not an agricultural development. It's not an industrial development. That's already happening. That's already there. Granted, there's going to be a material increase in footfall, but the developer is proposing to have a footway of these 45 metres that will allow a continuous link from Gilbert Close to the wider network of Woodbury. It's also important to note that the footway itself going along the bridge will act as a traffic calming measure. The arrangement as it is an informal give-take arrangement in either way. So it's only one-way vehicle flow over the footway, over the bridge as it is. So that the footway itself will act as a traffic calming measure. So vehicles, naturally, drivers will go slower and a lot more careful. I think it's also important to note out, with regards to the larger agricultural vehicles, anything 2.9 metres and wider are legally required to actually only to drive at 20 miles an hour speeds. So they have to have that careful consideration of driving. So that's the arrangement at the moment. So overall, we do consider it as a betterment because the benefit of a continuous footway from Gilbert Close going into the wider network is not just for the future residents, it's for the existing residents. Gilbert Close, people, and beyond towards the bend and the outer peripheries of Woodbury. So you've got to put into perspective that the agricultural traffic is already there, and the large majority of, let's call it, interaction, shall we say, when pedestrians, non-motorised users and standard or vehicles passing on the bridge, a large majority will be your standard vehicles. Agricultural vehicles represent a very small percentage of that, which is currently on a shared surface. This has now got an established footway At the moment, it's a full stand curb, upstand, so, but there has been discussions about lowering that, so on the odd occasion, if it were, and I'd like to just reference what the, one of the objectors said there about saying it would be remiss, yes, that's true, but again, as the chair rightly pointed out, it's the driver's responsibility for, for public highway safety. We're talking here a distance of around 25 metres in question, so we've got to put that into kind of perspective, and the likelihood of, again, it's, people already, that it's an existing arrangement, but the likelihood of that happening at that time, is very, very infrequent, and it's already there. So that's what we've had to factor in the overall planning balance. So I hope that sort of helped.
Okay, you happy, Mike?
Just one slightly follow-up.
So,
One slightly follow-up, and that is purely, I've heard everything you said, I understand everything you said, kind of what I expected, but in your own minds, this access for this new development would be safe?
With regards to access, the overall off-site works and everything, it's policy compliant, and it's an overall betterment to that as existing.
thank you. Councillor Anne Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Another one for Devon County Council Highways. Is there a national standard of minimum width of a pavement which is deemed safe? Because it's the pavement and the safety of pedestrians, mobility scooters. On a 1.2 metre wide width pavement, can you get a double buggy and a motorised scooter along there to pass? Or does it mean one has to go in the road? And also, are there drop curbs there to enable that? Thank you.
So no, it wouldn't be able to accommodate a double buggy, and you said a scooter in both directions. But at the moment, it's an existing arrangement where it's shared surface. That's the existing arrangement where there's already footfall. This is going to deliver a footway of 1.2 metres for a period of, again, roughly 25 metres. So the intervisibility is also acceptable on this point. So if there was any uncertainty for passing non-motorised users, they have to, there's the ability to wait for an interim period and won't allow each other to pass, and that's a fairly common practice.
That's it. I understand where you're coming from, but this is betterment, but we're adding another 60 properties or households onto this pavement or onto this walkway. And I would like to be reassured there's a safe walkway for children going to school, etc., or actually accessing facilities in the centre of the village. Because I don't know what's coming along the line, whether there's going to be more coming in from down the road. I don't know if there's more building going to come along, but we need to make sure it's safe, because I'm not happy to support something where I can't be guaranteed we've got the minimum standard width, which is recommended by government. Thank you.
Our current design guidance, inclusive mobility, allows for tapering for short stretches. And so, as Ben was saying, the give and take motion between the pedestrians is a similar arrangement to what the pedestrians and vehicles are doing currently.
Okay. Councillor Faithful, still on questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, my understanding of minimum minimum pavement was 150 relating to a planning application in Altry, but that's another thing. My question was actually about, do we know how wide these modern tractors are? Because they've got such fat tyres, they're huge.
I think from recollection, standard agricultural vehicles are around about 2.55 metres. There are, obviously, as pointed out, there are wider ones, but they are restricted. And anything more than 2.9 metres, I think, have to have special permission to actually access the road as well. Not just from us, but from the police as well. And I'd also like to think, taking into account there is weight restrictions on the bridge that you know, local farmers are presumably are adhering to that and the speed limit.
But, yes, I have another. Is there any alternative, such as a bridge the other side of the road?
I take your reference to the northern part of the bridge. So that was at the time, that was kind of explored with the applicant. They came to us and said they were exploring that, but at the time during the live application, it wasn't viable to progress that. But obviously things have evolved since then, but we have to look at this scheme on its own merits as is, and that's what we've done. But I think that's what they're alluding to about running, you know, parallel with any reserve matters and any revised plans if access was to be moved to all that.
And how do we determine priority between safety of pedestrians and a length of stone wall? Because it's the house that's listed more than the boundary wall, isn't it? So surely a good stonemason should be able to rebuild the wall set back of the same style and exactly the same layout.
They could, Peter, but that's not part of the application in front of us. Same thought occurred to me. But that was, as was pointed out, that would need listed building consent to move that wall, and that's a whole different application, but that's not what is in front of us today. So we need to go on what we're actually being presented with today. Councillor Barlow. No? Okay. Councillor Haggerty, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. For Devon County. I didn't think there was a weight. Is there a weight restriction on this bridge? Yeah. I think there is. Right. Wasn't aware of that, sorry.
Okay. You don't want to tell us what the width of a standard coach is, Del? Go on. Go on. I'm testing you. The double-decker bus I learned on was 6'8" and 14'6" long, and I can't remember how high it was. That's terrible. I could have gone under a narrow bridge by now, a low bridge. Okay. Oh, I've got a question actually. What is an uncontrolled crossing?
An uncontrolled crossing is, i.e. it's not controlled by the pedestrian, so it's not a signalised, it's not a toucan, for example. That's it. So it's, in this case, an uncontrolled crossing would be tactile paving, drop goes tactile paving at either side of the respective on the road, and the pedestrian crosses when they think it's safe to do so.
So it's just a place where it's a bit safer to cross the road?
So the proximity, yes, the proximity is safe. Is when the pedestrian feels is ready to safe, i.e. there's no traffic coming.
Okay, but there's no priority element?
No, there's no priority, no, it's uncontrolled.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, although as I will keep pointing out, in terms of road safety, since the redrafting of the Highway Code, pedestrians have the highest safety priority and vehicles the lowest. So we need to bear that in mind. It was also stated earlier there's no speed limit on the road from Pink House Corner down to Woodbury. My son picked me up on this many years ago when he said, "Well, Dad, what's the speed limit on this road?" I went, "Oh, it's unrestricted." He said, "No, national speed limits apply." So the speed limit on the road would actually be 60, it would be national speed limit. Okay, so we are now into debate, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. And they are talking about moving subject 106, moving the speed limit from unlimited or unrestricted or national speed limit, whichever you want to call it. Yes, down to 30. We've heard from the officers from Devon County Council that although this isn't perfect, this is an improvement, not only an improvement for the new thing, but also for the people that already live there. So we should take that into account. I think we also need to be realistic. This is in the new local plan coming up. I know it hasn't gone through regulation 19 yet, 18, whatever it is, never know. However, if we don't, we're going to be looking for extra houses. And if we look for extra houses, it doesn't mean this one isn't going to get in it. It means we've got to find more houses, more places to put it, more unsuitable places that will be, again, balances that we have to take. So for that reason, when you're good and ready, I am happy to make a proposal to support the recommendation as per the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Howe.
Just trying to correct my colleague there. We're not interested in our new local plan or our emerging local plan. It has no power at present. But the fundamental issue we have, and what officers have made in this case, is we currently sit with a 4.15 of a 5-year housing land supply. The government have said it will be 5 years by the end of this year. We will have no 5-year housing land supply at that point. Ignoring that bit, we can't have a new local plan unless we've got a 5-year housing land supply. So, irrespective of what we do, we have to deliver 759 dwellings outside of our existing local plan currently. Some might come in that, if we're lucky, on windfalls, but most of that has to come outside of our local plan. So we have to ignore, to a certain extent, our existing local plan. Otherwise, we are putting ourselves in a whole heart of problems coming up rapidly. So after that, and after all the answers from Devon County Council, which is the only real issue with this, we couldn't refuse it on highways grounds. If we deferred it on highways grounds, we'd be back here in a month's time having exactly the same discussion with highways telling us exactly the same thing and no reason for refusal. Not one. So I know Councillor Barlow wanted to propose it. If he's happy, I'm happy to propose it from here and we'll see where we go.
Well, we could take that as a seconder, if you like, and Ian as proposer. Councillor Faithful, you had a comment.
Thank you, Chair. Our local plan, our new, whatever you call it, hasn't got there yet, local
Merging.
Plan. That's the one. It's supposed to run until 2042. So we don't have to have this one ready to go now. So we don't have to accept what is presented to us at this exact planning application. There's nothing wrong with them going back, addressing our concerns and coming back with something different. The local plan is only identifying that piece of land for development. It doesn't deal with anything else. It doesn't even discuss the type of houses that go
I
on
don't think
it.
we should get too sidetracked on the emerging local plan.
This is what they're saying.
It carries no weight at the moment.
Yes, but this is the point. So we don't have to agree to this because of what's going to come up in our future local plan. We need to look at what we've got at the moment, and I'm not satisfied with the issues, highways issues that I see. You know, to me, as I said, 1.5 metres is what was identified as the minimum pavement width in Ottery. If that's the width for Ottery, surely it's the same width for Woodbury as well. Thank you.
I think the pavement width, I'll defer to the highway officers here, but the pavement width will depend on how much road is available. They can't take too much road, otherwise they will be going below minimum standards. And as has been pointed out, it's a vast improvement on the tiny little white line that, quite frankly, you have to be a tightrope walker to keep within that at the moment. So, you know, we are talking about an improvement, and I'd be quite happy to walk along a 1.2 metre wide. That's 4 foot. And it, you know, if a double buggy meets a mobility scooter, well, they'll have to sort that one out for themselves. But it's no different from what happens on many pavements anyway. Yeah, I mean, can I just ask? I mean, presumably the reason why it's 1.2 is because we have to leave some highway space.
Well, we're not the designer, but I can only presume that's what the applicant had their thought process. Yes, they obviously took into account what was remaining for the width of the road. Again, important to note out that is a one-way vehicle flow over the bridge, not two, and that it's a shared surface as existing already accommodating footfall.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bailey, then Councillor Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair. I, like everybody here, has listened very patiently to this argument. I agree with Mike, we need the houses, we need to get our land supply up. But above all that, we need to be safe. And with this proposal, producing, one imagines 60 houses would produce probably more than 60 children who have to walk to school. And any of my children or my grandchildren, I wouldn't like to walk across the bridge at Woodbury at present, however wide the footpath is, because it's on a dangerous bend. I've been over that bridge hundreds of times, and it's always very nervous, makes me nervous because you can't see around the corner, you don't know what's coming. And a white line, as you say, is insufficient. So I feel I could support this application if there was a condition that a bridge was put in there. The bridge is not going to cost an absolute fortune. It's going to benefit the whole of the village, and it's going to keep children safe. So that's my opinion on it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we can condition that. That would need an S106, not condition, I think.
It's not part of the proposals, so we need to be considering the application based on what the current proposal is. And if members are not minded to support this with that current proposal, well, the implication is that you would then be looking to refuse it on the basis of the current highway proposals. When we have a scenario where Devon County Highways Authority are saying that not only is this just acceptable, it is offering betterment. It is offering an improvement in highway safety compared to the current situation because people are already walking over that bridge. So that would be very, very challenging to defend at appeal. I think the other thing we do need to also bear in mind is that the proposal is also offering a pedestrian link out onto Broadway. So that's a further betterment because obviously it offers an alternative and obviously safe route out onto Broadway where the main bus stops are, for example, for anybody wanting to catch buses or to access that part of the village. And again, that's an increased permeability and pedestrian access, which is available not just to the residents of this new development, but to anybody living in this part of Woodbury. So there is a second alternative route of getting to the village. It's not the most direct route if you were going sort of to the north immediately, but there is an alternative proposal. This is not going to be the only way of accessing the centre of the village. So I think it is really important to bear in mind that the alternative, if you want an alternative proposal, that would result in refusing the application today, contrary to the advice of Devon County Council.
Okay, and Councillor Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair. We're all saying, so can we go to a vote?
Yeah.
I think we're there.
I think Councillor Howe was probably about to propose the same, were you? Okay.
I did have a question actually for our legal. I'm just wondering what advice he would give if we refused it. And then at appeal, of course, we have no defence. What you might be asking, to withdraw any opposition at that point, I imagine.
I suspect you're right, and bearing in mind obviously what Mrs Ormsby's just said. Doesn't sound like we've got much of a chance, to be fair.
Okay, so I think we will go to a vote. All those, we have a proposal to approve with the conditions. I think we've got to adopt an appropriate assessment as well, haven't we? We'll take both of those. All those in favour of approval?
Seven. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And against? 1. Abstentions? 4, I think. Yeah. Does that all add up? Okay, so that application is approved, and we'll take a short break. Where are we now? Just gone 4 o'clock. Let's say till 4:10.
Thanks.
Could be worse. It's been snowing in Bristol this morning. I've just seen video from my daughter, yeah. 10:30 this morning, it was raining.
My daughter was sending pictures last night.
Probably on Dartmoor, I don't know, it just depends. Yeah, it just depends where the hot and cold air masses meet.
It's about halfway up the wall, isn't it?
Oh, it gives me a cough.
Right, members, are we all back? Councillor Faithful's there, Councillor Bailey had to leave.
This is a student house. Oh, right. Student houses. It's like
It's gone.
inclusive, but only up to
Right.
a certain level. So they're all
I can't even remember, who was
they're
there,
not really
Jenny?
sure how much they're using, so
Oh, Anne,
too scared
yeah,
to put it on
of
a
course.
table.
She's gone without you, Matt.
I mean, I think the land
Yeah.
Has she left you a card?
It's a disgrace.
I'm just
Okay.
Where?
this morning, I just
Right.
I knew you've got to check tights and boots on, and I thought, no, I just shoes and thin toes.
Oh, no, wrong one. Okay, members, let's crack on, get this done, then we can all go home and thaw out. Okay, so we are on to item 13. Here we go. This is application 240301 MOUT, land south of Meeting Lane, Limpston. This is one we had before, but it's an outline application this time rather than a full application, but changes to the access arrangements from the previous. So, page 211 on your agenda, and over to Lynn Schwen to present the report.
Hello. This application is before members because it represents a departure from the adopted local plan, and objections have been received by a ward member and parish council. The application seeks outline planning permission with all matters reserved, apart from access for the construction of up to 42 dwellings. It includes affordable housing at 50%, 35% on site, and a 15% off-site contribution. It includes open space and an attenuation wetland pond. There's a couple of issues before we start, sort of housekeeping type issues. One is we've received further information about the biodiversity net gain, which the ecologist thinks is essentially okay now, subject to appropriate conditions and some further information. Couple of other issues, the highways, we've received further response from them saying that they're happy with the application as submitted. As with the previous full application, it's been agreed with the Highway Authority that the off-site works will be dealt with by a £20,000 financial contribution to be secured through the 106. They're also happy with the visibility arrangements on a single point of access onto Meeting Lane, but there is one plan that wasn't included, which is the access arrangements, the visibility displays. It wasn't included as one of the suggested approved plans, so that would need to be added. And the other thing is the report also refers to a 15% SIL contribution, but as there's an adopted neighbourhood plan, that should be 25%. So that would also need to be corrected. Right. So the application site lies to the northern edge of the village of Limpston, with abutting the built-up area boundary, again with Gleeblands and Gulliford Close there. This is Strawberry Hill that leads up together with Meeting Lane to the junction at the A376 where they're proposing the highway improvements. As I say, the application's in outline, 42 dwellings with 15% affordable. It's a roughly triangular piece of land extending to 2.5 hectares, bounded by Meeting Lane, one of the main routes into the village. to the north, Strawberry Hill to the east, and Gulliford Close and Gleeblands to the southwest. All matters are reserved apart from access, which is proposed onto Meeting Lane there. There is a protected tree belt along this sort of southwestern boundary and further trees and hedges within the site. The single point of access proposed onto Meeting Lane with visibility space which have been agreed with the County Highway Authority. An indicative layout has been provided, which is similar to that previously considered under the full application, although, as I say, this is obviously indicative, but removing the former access onto Meeting Lane so that all of the properties are now served, on Strawberry Hill, beg your pardon, with all the properties now being served through a single vehicular access onto Meeting Lane. There's attenuation area and landscaping in this area with the tree belt, some of which are protected trees within it, being retained, as are most of the hedgerow trees and planting, apart from, I think there's a removal of one tree towards the access, but apart from that, the site boundaries and the existing hedgerows and Devon Bank down Strawberry Hill are proposed to be retained. Again, that's further illustration of the indicative layout. The next few photos taken from within the site, these are looking towards the properties in Gulliford Close to the south. And again, it's the end of Gulliford Close. This is the existing tree belt within the middle of the site, with the corner of the properties in Gulliford Close and those further properties beyond the second tree belt, which is a protected one, onto Gleeblands. Oh, sorry, what have I done? This is looking from the existing access onto Meeting Lane towards the tree belt and the further trees and Gleeblands beyond. This is essentially where the proposed access would be onto Meeting Lane, looking from within the site. Looking north towards, there's existing stable buildings which have got permission to be converted to a dwelling on the northeastern side of the site. It's more or less beyond which there's the junction between Meeting Lane and Strawberry Hill. This is looking from the end of Gulliford Close with the access route which will come through with the trees and hedge banks in this position to be retained. That's the southern boundary with the tree bank onto Gleeblands and looking across towards Meeting Lane. Again, that's further pictures of the trees within the site. And that's looking from the sort of end of Gulliford Close towards Meeting Lane, and then looking back in the other direction towards Gulliford Close. Both the tree bank in the middle and the boundary trees are to be retained. That's where the proposed pedestrian access onto Meeting Lane to join up with the existing footpath is proposed. And that's more views across the site. And then this is looking down Meeting Lane towards where the access would be. Right. So basically, we're proposing that the application is recommended for approval subject to appropriate conditions and adoption of the appropriate assessment. It's an outline application with all matters reserved. Apart from access, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Lynn. So we have an objector, Nicholas Linfoot.
Thank you, Chair. These are my wife's comments, but obviously I fully support them. We prepared them together. We're relieved that Free West Group have listened to some of the objections on layout and access to the proposed development at Meeting Lane. However, we still have two concerns with the development. Much discussion took place at the last planning application about the right turn from the A376 into Meeting Lane. That is not the major problem at this junction. The major problem is it is more difficult, dangerous to turn out of Meeting Lane right onto the 376 to go towards Exmouth. At busy times of day, cars can wait several minutes to safely turn right, obviously delaying vehicles awaiting a left turn. A right turn lane at that junction would increase the difficulty for cars turning right, because what happens quite often now is a car turning off the 376 into Meeting Lane will actually let the exiting car go safely because it's blocking the traffic. The input of a right turn lane would make it almost impossible to safely join that that junction. Now, you know, a redesign must be allowed. I actually caught the highway officers on the way out. To me, the obvious answer is a very small roundabout at that junction. So if you've got the chance to turn right, nothing comes from the left, you can enter into the roundabout, turn right. I'm told that would be prohibited on cost grounds, but that would be a suggestion. If that doesn't come, I really don't think a right turn lane, or we don't think a right turn lane would be helpful. We live at the end of Gulliford Close, and the single access road will pass next to the edge of our garden, passing with 4 metres of our bedroom and about 5 metres from our conservatory. Now, we understand that if this is going to be the one access road into this estate, that has to happen. It will pass through our road. What does concern us is the Police Architectural Liaison report for this site mentioned detailed design should include a layout with accessible spaces in the rear of the plots avoided. Public accessible space to the rear of plots is not recommended. Well, we get that right the way down the side of our garden at the end of Gulliford Close. So that's not what we are happy with. The Free West design statement states Free West homes will be provided with private amenity space to support healthy living. Yet again, it's not been applied to our house or my neighbour's house at number 5, who have concerns re privacy. We strongly object to the turning parking area in front of our house. I don't know if the members can see what I mean, just the two end houses at Gulliford Close, is that input there? This area has already been refused permission by this planning council via 21/0567 when the field owner was trying to gain access down the close and into that field. They stated that access by foot or vehicle through this area was an invasion of our privacy. The area is not required as there's ample turning space in the road or planned road as you go further down the new development. The committee report mentions the Human Rights Act, Article 8, which protects the rights and respect for private and family life, home and correspondence. The committee report today has failed to mention both our concerns and our neighbours at number 5 for our private space. If a car is to turn or park in that space, it's 2/3 metres from our front window. In fact,
I need to ask you to finish up now.
Okay, it's so close that if you actually, when the tractor reversed in to cut it, it flicked the stone up and broke it. So my wife works from home. She's on Teams and Zoom meetings every day. And we just ask that if you consider this application on this access point, that you do not allow that area there for a parking turning space. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I think that's not actually part of the application. I think that will come in at reserved matters stage. So that will be the time to look at the final design. This is just an indicative layout, but obviously they have put this, as you say, a turning space in there. So we'll need to consider that, and maybe officers could bear that in mind when we come back with reserved matters. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have an objection also from Clem Davis. And you're reading this one, Amanda? You haven't delegated it this time? No. Righto.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this planning application. I am writing on behalf of Lympstone Water Quality Group. Firstly, it is important to state that a housing development of this scale, 42 dwellings, will cause water pollution if not managed effectively. In this case, in the stream and the estuary. Pollution caused by runoff from urban services is now well documented. In addition to this, the proposed development will contribute the load on the main sewerage system and consequently increase the risk of spills and pollution in the estuary. At present, there is no evidence in the planning application of either a robust water pollution risk assessment or water pollution controls. The proposed surface water annuation pond has been designed for flood risk purposes only, not water treatment. For water treatment, you would expect to see a forebay of sediment settlement, some permanent water, and other methods to ensure adequate bioretention and biodegradation, all of which will be maintained. There is also no information on what emergency standby pumps and storage will be provided for the sewerage connection system if a pump system is needed, or how this will be maintained. And there is no detail of water pollution prevention methods to be used during construction. Overall, the planning application does not conform to, number one, the National Planning Policy Framework, Section 15, paragraph 180E, which states clearly that planning decisions should prevent development from contributing to water pollution and should, wherever possible, help to improve local environmental conditions such as water quality. Number two, the East Devon Local Plan Policies, EN 14, on the control of pollution, and EN 18 on the maintenance of water quality. Number three, the Sustainable Drainage Systems Manual, C753. There is also no evidence of a habitats regulation assessment by East Devon Planning. This is required under the habitats regulations due to the potential impact on the estuary, as advised by Natural England, and it should be available for review as part of the consultation process. This is critical. And finally, but importantly, there is no reference to compliance with the environmental permitting regulations. Based on the current design, an environmental permit would require for the discharge from the planned attenuation pond, since without adequate treatment purposes, this will be contaminated. Based on the above, I consider that the outline planning application should be refused. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I think all those points would be dealt with at reserved matters, wouldn't they? I thought they'd missed the fact it's an outline application until he said this outline application should be refused. It sounded a bit like a carbon copy of his objections to the last one in Lympstone, and yeah, I take his points. But at the moment on this one, it's not a full application. It's not reserved matters, and all of that considerations as to how water runoff is dealt with and so on will come back at reserved matters. Okay, we'll hear from the agent then, Nick Yeo. Is he here? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Chairman, members, thank you. My name is Nick Yeo, Director of 3 West. 3 West are an East Devon-based SME housing developer with their offices in Woodbury, and we're the landowner of this proposed site. I would like to thank your officers who have been supportive of the delivery of the site and have maintained a clear line of communication to work with us to deliver the scheme before you, and they have endorsed this for approval. Members will recall that a full planning application on this site was brought before you in September and was refused permission. We have advised EDDC of our intention to have this decision reviewed by the Planning Inspectorate. One reason for refusal related to the site not having been confirmed as an allocation within the emerging local plan at that time. This matter has since been addressed by your Strategic Planning Committee, where the site has been confirmed as an allocation for 46 dwellings. The other reasons for refusal being pepper potting of affordable housing and specific impact on one tree. These are also not relevant to this planning application as there are matters of detail to follow in a reserved matter submission. All you are being asked to determine is the access and the description of development. The access proposals are supported by highways officers and the principle of development is affirmed by the site's allocation. Whilst an objection was not raised by Devon County Highways and whilst not a reason for refusal, concern was raised on the full planning application over the provision of 2 access points. Following that committee meeting, we opened dialogue with the Parish Council and subsequently agreed to amend our plans to remove the Strawberry Hill access, addressing this key local issue. Last week, the Council published its latest housing monitoring report. In summary, it confirmed the Council's housing land supply now stands at 4.15 years. The report also confirmed that if the Council's land supply position is calculated using the housing figures set out in the new NPPF, your land supply position will fall to 3.24 years. In either scenario, the Council is unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply when the NPPF comes into effect, which is expected to happen next month. Approval of the application today would result in a reserved matter submission being made in early 2025, with the scheme being completed in 2027, making a valuable contribution to your land supply position. A salient benefit to the Council is the provision of affordable housing. This scheme would deliver 35% on-site, meaning 14 affordable homes, including a predominance of social rent, which is a clear Council objective. In addition, a financial contribution of £292,000 will also be made towards the delivery of affordable homes elsewhere in the district, taking the overall affordable provision to 50%, which is 20% above the emerging local plan policy position. We will also pay circa £800,000 of community infrastructure levy, of which approximately £200,000 would go to the Parish Council. Approval of the application will result in a multitude of benefits on a site that this Council has formally identified for allocation. In our opinion, and that of your officers, this is a compliance scheme, and as such, we would request that you endorse your officer's report and grant planning permission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And ward members, Councillor Jeff Young.
Me first again. I did not support the previous application 231269 MF full for a number of concerns. As portfolio holder for Coast Country Environment, I had a major concern with the sewage issue, but I see that this is going to be covered by a Grampian order, so my concerns would be overcome on that. Now speaking as a ward councillor regarding the previous application, I said that in effect it was 2 separate planning applications, one for the better off for 5 executive houses with access off Strawberry Hill, and the other less well off with access off Meeting Lane. Thankfully, this has been addressed with this application with 1 single access off Meeting Lane. I was not convinced with the Highways Authority saying that the A376 into Meeting Lane was safe, but they are the experts and we have to take their word for it. So my highway issues were in conflict with strategy 5B, as it would not allow safe, accessible means of transport, including walking, cycling, but highways, as I say, has now determined that to be safe. I also said that it was against strategy 5, with the removal of a Devon bank and destroying natural habitat, but that has been overcome with the removal of the Strawberry Hill entrance. It is acknowledged that it is against strategy 6, as it is outside the existing built-up area boundary and does not comply to strategy 7, as it is development in the open countryside. But it would be compliant to the emerging local plan. It is in the existing coastal protection area, as it would destroy the views to and from the estuary. So fails strategy 44, but probably not in the emerging new local plan, as this would be removed from the coastal protection area. It would also fail on strategy 34, as it was not providing 50% affordable housing on site, but that provision has been offset with off-site contributions. I also considered that the application was failing policy EN 22 regarding the surface water runoff, as was not satisfactorily covered, as it seems it requires a third-party landowner to accept the water runoff, which I understood was had not been yet agreed. However, this application for outline does not cover this, as it will be covered by the full application, which will be coming forward if this application is agreed. I therefore asked the committee to. I therefore asked the committee previously to refuse the application, and hoped a better application comes forward that is more acceptable to the local residents, more acceptable to tenants and to the householder moving in, and more compliant to our local plan. So the developer has done what he has been asked, and therefore, although this is against our current policy, I reluctantly support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Ingham? Yes, still a mic on somewhere.
I think I said to you last time, the first time I heard of this as a potential site was nearly 40 years ago, when the land came up for auction, and it went for a price way, way above what you would pay for arable land. And so I'm really shocked that it's taken till this evening for us to have, perhaps something we can pass. And you see down just below the plot, there's Gulliford Close, which was identified about 10 years ago. And when we were trying to put forward a Livingston neighbourhood plan, and we're very fortunate that the then owners decided only to put forward 10. We hit our number, and that was great. So it's sort of 10 years later that we see this come forward. And last time you were looking at it, yes, you heard there was access you were concerned about onto Strawberry Hill, and that's been corrected. And you can see that basically those row of houses that had access onto Strawberry Hill turned around, face the other way, and go through the site. So, yes, the applicant's done what was suggested. So I would say you'd have to be crazy not to approve this application so we can move forward. 40 years on. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, it's almost like channeling Councillor Collins there when you're going back 40 years. Okay, so thank you, Ben. Questions? Councillor Faithful?
Thank you, Chair. So exactly which access are we to be discussing? Because you've got the main road access, and then there's the pedestrian access, the bottom right, and appears to be a yellow further pedestrian access going down, which seems to link on to, there's a public footpath there. And then there's the pedestrian access to the far left, which joins on to the other end of Meeting Lane. Are we discussing all of that, or just the road access?
I think it's just the road access, isn't it? It's normally just the site access that we're looking at.
I think the main access is onto Meeting Lane, the vehicular access, and then the other one that we're seeking or is being sought for approval is that to the corner there onto Meeting Lane.
So it is the vehicle access and the pedestrian access.
Yeah, sorry, no, the scheme wouldn't be safe without pedestrian access, which leads onto a public footpath on
Yes.
Meeting Lane. The one on Scullerford Close, as I understand it, hasn't been formalised and
Yeah.
doesn't actually formally form part of this application.
Okay. So, so it is the vehicle access off Meeting Lane and the pedestrian access onto the footway into in Meeting Lane.
And following on from comments made by our vice chair at the last application, what about the housing style or whatever? Are we supposed to be discussing that? Because, I mean, to me, what the layout that's presented on this outline is, to me, that's not pepper potting. That's still the same layout as before. But anyway, that's just a simple question.
That will come forward at reserved matters. At the moment, we're just concerned with the amount of affordable housing, the percentage. Okay, other questions? No? Okay, in that case, we can go into debate. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I remember this came up not that long ago. I didn't think the previous scheme was bad. However, I know the committee voted against it. I can see no reason. I'm not 40 years old, but I can see no reason why we would not pass this, and I certainly will support it and happy to propose it, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? I think Councillor Haggerty was slightly ahead there.
Yes, I can remember this coming in the last time. Excuse me. I'm more than happy to second this on this occasion. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I mean, at the moment, we're just concerned with the principle and that we're happy with the access onto Meeting Lane. I take all the points about the exit onto the A376 from Meeting Lane. It is an awful junction, that, and I certainly wouldn't want to be coming out of there, and certainly not turning right. I think I'd probably make a detour and go up Long Meadow Lane and come out by the lights, rather than attempt to turn right there. But that's not a concern at the moment, and certainly if they were to put a right turn into it, that would go some way to making it a little easier to turn right. But I take the point at the moment, right turning traffic holds up the other traffic and can let people out, but you're reliant, if you want to turn right yourself, on somebody else turning right into it. Councillor Howe.
I was actually going to say Councillor Ragg wants to go. I'm quite happy for her to go first.
Thanks, Mike. It says here that the Highway Authority doesn't consider it to be severe enough. Well, the times that I've heard this, severe, what is severe risk? And this is from back when I was on County Council, and I left there in 2017. And it's still, as far as I know, severe is still being tested at appeal, because people can't make up their minds what constitutes severe and what doesn't, can be challenged. So, I have real concerns about this. And the A376 is bad enough anyway without this access. Can't.
Yeah, that's true. And certainly with an ever increasing amount of traffic, we can't infill anymore unless we go north of Meeting Lane, which I don't think was approved at strategic planning, but we are going to get increasing amounts of traffic trying to come out of Meeting Lane, and it's fairly obvious something will need to be done for that access. But at the moment, that highway's concern is kind of remote from our site, so that's probably not a consideration at the moment, but definitely one for highways to consider. Unfortunately, they've gone. Any other?
We currently have 4.15 years housing land supply. We have to have 5, quite simply. With no sustainable objections to this, and it being outline, not detail, there is no reason to object or even abstain on this one. Thank you.
No, I agree. And when it comes back at reserve matters, we can put it through the ringer then, which we've shown we're very good at. Any further comments, or shall we go to a vote?
Could I just make one comment?
Yes, please, Wendy.
It's just to clarify that obviously this is following on from the previous refusal application, which was a detailed application. And it's just a reminder that that application was refused for 3 reasons. The fact that the site was unallocated and outside the built-up area boundary. The potential impact on trees because of houses being too close, which was a detailed matter, which would now be left to reserve matters to look at a different layout. And also the failure to pepper pot affordable homes. Again, that is a reserve matter issue for consideration in the future. So the only reason for refusal that members need to be having mind to is the fact that this is located outside the built-up area boundary, contrary to Strategy 7. However, as has already been mentioned, this is now, and this is obviously, it wasn't the case at the time, but Strategic Planning Committee have deemed this in their view, this is a sustainable site because it has now been put forward as a proposed site. And also our housing land supply position has worsened since we last considered this. And we do have to give weight to the need to provide houses. And we did not refuse this previously on highway grounds. And so there would be no justification to do so on this occasion because there is no material change other than betterment in terms of highway impact. Thank you.
Okay. So, in that case, we have a proposal to approve, seconded. So, all those in favour? Those against? And abstentions? 1. 1? Yeah, 1. Okay, members, thank you very much for your attendance today, and I will now declare the meeting closed.
You need to do that with more gusto.